I've had the iPhone 13 Pro for about 24 hours and these are my first impressions of Apple's new flagship. At first glance it looks a lot like the iPhone 12 Pro. However, the notch is smaller, which doesn't really make a huge difference though. On the back we have a huge camera bump, which allows for better cameras with bigger sensors. We'll get back to those. The iPhone 13 Pro is bigger and heavier than the iPhone 12 Pro. And though on paper it's not a lot, it is a heavy phone. There's also a good reason for this. The battery life on this year's iPhones have improved a lot. Apple claims that the iPhone 13 Pro will last 1.5 hours longer than the iPhone 12 Pro. This is due to both the bigger battery but also some great improvements Apple have made in the A15 Bionic chip, which is both faster and more efficient. As I've only had this phone for 24 hours, I can't confirm or deny these claims, but I will make sure to test this and include it in my full review in a few weeks' time. So if you want to see a more deep dive in the iPhone 13 Pro, please subscribe to my channel to see my full review later. I really appreciate it. The iPhone 13 Pro has one huge, important upgrade if you ask me, and that's the screen. It features a 120Hz display, which means that it updates 120 times a second, which makes animations, scrolling and games so much smoother than the old 60Hz display. I really love high refresh rate screens and I've been using one for my gaming PC for as long as I can remember. And now, finally, high refresh rate has come to the iPhone with ProMotion. It's probably a bigger deal for me than it is for most people, but if you've gotten used to a high refresh rate display, there's just no going back. It's amazing and so buttery smooth. I could just look at my home screen all day just scrolling. Unfortunately, I can't really show it to you here because this is a 25 FPS video and I can show it in 25 frames per second. So there's that. ProMotion is, however, more intelligent and it'll change refresh rate based on what you're doing. Playing a game, full 120 Hz. But if you're reading an article, it might go all the way down to 10 Hz to preserve battery. And it changes in an instant, so you won't ever notice that it's not running 120 Hz. Let's talk about what's inside the phone. The new A15 Bionic is plenty fast for everything you would want a phone to do, but so was last year's iPhone. The most important thing is the better efficiency, which means better battery life. But there are some advancements in the neural engine that are important to features like cinematic mode and live text. And speaking of those features, let's talk about the camera. Because these cameras are not only huge in design, it's also a huge improvement. They're all new, bigger sensors, which means they can capture more light. And though I really need to test this more, my first impressions are that A, they're great, and B, the macro feature is fun. These are just some pictures I've shot the last 24 hours. I've tried to challenge the camera's dynamic range by shooting up against the sun, like in this picture, and for this I wanted to change the HDR settings, but they seem gone. I guess HDR is just on by default for now. Here I've tried to capture the same image but with Pro RAW on, and you can really see how the dynamic range is better, where both the sky and the building is visible. Whereas in the normal image, the building is way pushed into the shadows. I'll also test Pro RAW way more and see how it works inside of Lightroom. This is a portrait selfie in direct sunlight, where it does a good job of separating my face and blur out the background, if a bit too harsh on the hair. After that I stepped into the shadows to have a more even lighting on my face, and here it had a bit more trouble, and here it's actually the opposite, where my hair is a bit too soft. The macro feature is really fun, and there are lots of really creative things I'm sure a lot of people will do with it. These are just some random shots I took in the city, but it's really impressive how good it is. What I'm really excited about is the cinematic mode. I work as a videographer, and although I'm not thinking about replacing my professional camera with an iPhone, it's really impressive how far phones have come when it comes to video. But I'm not really sure I'm convinced that it's really that cinematic. I will say that the fake bokeh, where our subject is in focus and the background is blurred, is impressive even if it's not perfect. I couldn't get the cinematic focus rack, where it switches from one subject to the other, to work consistently. So I just ended up tapping to focus. The cinematic mode does, however, open up new creative ways of shooting movies on the iPhone, where you have control over the focus and you can even slide the f-stop to adjust how much blur you want in the background. But I don't think my Blackmagic camera will feel threatened anytime soon. I'm also really excited for ProRes video, but that's not here yet. Hopefully it'll be here soon. If you have any questions or things you would like to know about the iPhone 13 Pro, please let me know in the comments and I'll try to include it in the review or just answer you down in the comments. This has been Milconeso and I am out.